going to go through a little bit about what you could maybe possibly expect from early labor. You're going to hear a lot of words like that because birth does not fit into a predetermined box. There is absolutely no way for us to know exactly how long you'll spend in early labor, what will happen to you during early labor, or if you'll even notice early labor. For me, I was fully expecting that early labor experience of like 10 minutes between surges, and I would cook some food and bake cookies for my nurses. And like I had to like talk about the list, like I had all this stuff I was gonna do. And my early labor consisted of feeling like I had to go to the bathroom, like I was gonna have diarrhea 2 times in a Mexican restaurant, and then that was it. And then I went into active labor. And I did not expect that, and it totally threw my plan off. So that might happen to you, or you might have days of early labor, or you might just feel some like slight weird tugging for a few days. This can look like anything at all. But possibly with early labor, you might expect some light cramping, some pressure in your lower abdomen, in your back. You might have some diarrhea. That was another thing that I had for a few days, kind of loose bowels. Again, your body's just getting prepped. Your natural expulsive reflex is practicing. During early labor, you typically dilate up to like 3 to 4 centimeters, and you're usually getting pretty excited if you actually know what's happening. Some women, again, don't even realize that they're in early labor at all. Some women are aware of it. They have these very clear surge-like sensations because you're having a surge. They're just not very strong during early labor. Typically, these surges last between 30 to 45 seconds and again have like 10, 15 minutes, maybe more, maybe less in between. Usually you know that you are in labor when you're having regular surges. So you don't have to have that app that times everything, but you can just kind of keep track of whether they are consistent. If you have one surge at 11, another at 3, and then another at 10 p.m., you're having some surges, but you're probably not really moving into labor yet because it's not consistent. So you'll look for that consistency and just kind of pay attention. During this time, although it can be exciting to realize, all right, something's happening, I'm probably moving into this process, just sit on it for a second because sometimes we get really excited and we're like, oh, I have to go to the hospital. I have to like call my midwife and go to the birth center. And then we go and we might have like another day of early labor and we're just sitting around and sometimes at the hospital. If you don't want induction or you don't want an epidural or whatnot, they might start to offer it to you more just because if you're there, they want to get things going. Oftentimes at the hospital, if you're not 3 or 4 centimeters when you arrive, they will send you home anyways. So just try to have some patience. I know this can be one of the trickiest times in life to have patience. You've been waiting so long to meet your baby. You're so close and you just want it to happen. But just take a few breaths, distract yourself if you can. You can go see a movie, read a book, hang out with your partner. This is really one of the last times that your family will look exactly like it does in that moment. If you have another child, you can spend some time with them. Really nurture your family as they are in that moment before your family expands. Sleep can be a really amazing thing to do during this phase if you can. I know it can be hard if you're really feeling the surges during early labor, but if it's not that strong, if you have long intervals, get as much sleep as you can, because for a lot of women that have longer labors, one of the trickiest things can be fatigue, can be not having slept for 24 hours or even 12 hours or whatever. So really take this opportunity to rest, eat. If you can, when you go into active labor, you might not be as hungry, but your body still needs something. It needs fuel to run off of, right? And it's almost like you're going to be running a marathon, so you need that energy. So have a meal that sounds good to you. Hopefully something really healthy and wholesome with protein, fresh vegetables, something that can really last for a while. And just get used to the journey that you're moving into and get used to the fact that this might be a long thing that you're traveling into and And you're moving through this kind of like, you're at this fulcrum. You're going to be moving through this interim period between pregnancy and motherhood. And although in the big scheme of things, it doesn't look like a long period of time, it can feel like you've had like this whole lifetime in this like day or 2 days or whatever. So just try to get comfortable in that setting and not get too focused on getting to the other side. Like, I just need to have my baby. Really settle into the experience that you're having.
And this time period is also a time to get accustomed to being in the labor process, because even though it's not labor as you have imagined it to be, like when you think, a lot of people, when they think of labor, they think of like being in active labor as labor, but this is a part of labor. And so it's a moment where you can just assimilate yourself with the process that you're in and just say like, okay, I am now in labor, and it is going to move at whatever pace it needs to move at, and it's going to be in its own process. But this is actually, it's not that this is separate from the labor as I imagine it. This is one whole cohesive experience. So starting to assimilate into that process so that it doesn't become such a new thing when you do increase in the intensity and you do move into the next stages of labor, you already have felt like you have been a part of this process. And just kind of getting yourself into that mix a little bit and sitting with that is really, really powerful to whatever extent you can spend time doing that.
And don't wait to start using your tools until you're in active labor. Some women think, oh, I'm not having a lot of surges, or they're not incredibly strong, but they're still tricky to move through. Go ahead and use those breathing techniques, or listen to that recording that you like. Get into the tub. Do what feels good to you, and don't wait to support yourself, because some women really feel that early labor. I don't want you to think that just because it's the early labor and it's not as strong that it's not still intense. It can be really, really intense. So I want you to know that and potentially be prepared for that, but also know that right from the beginning, from the first surge that you have, you can support yourself and you can do things to make yourself more comfortable.
Start steeping yourself in that environment that we talked about, like that kind of inner experience that you want to have. Start steeping yourself in that and create the environment around you. You probably haven't transitioned to the hospital yet, so start making that home environment what you want it to be to support that inner experience, and just start dropping into this next phase of your life, which is whatever amount of hours it's going to be, or days that it's going to be. Just like, this is a moment of your life right now that you are in this laboring moment. So the actual pushing out of the baby moment hasn't happened yet. The postpartum hasn't happened yet. You're not in the pre-labor moment either, where the labor hasn't begun. You have begun the process of labor. So you have transitioned into this new moment. So start to just allow yourself to know that a lot of times in life, when we look at phases of our life, we look at them in much larger chunks. Like, we look at the first 3 years of parenthood, or we look at like our early 20s, or we look at whatever. We look at these like longer periods of time as phases of life. But I see this time period as a phase of our life. It's a very unique, very special phase of our life that doesn't happen that often. If you really think about it, even if you have 4 kids, that this only happens those 4 times. It's not something that happens a lot. And so it's really special to just allow yourself to say, like, I'm in this moment. And it's something like almost in between worlds about this moment in time. And if you can tap into that and find out what your version of that feels like, then you get to hold on to that. And when you look back, you get to feel that experience. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to bypass the beauty of that time because they're just looking at what the next part is, or they're just trying to like talk themselves out of it, or whatever the case is. I really want to encourage people to just be in that moment, enjoy it, and realize that, like, for whatever stretch of time, which you don't even know, you're going into an unknown. This is a sacred time. This is a time of transitioning. You're about to go through a huge initiation of childbirth. Allow yourself to be in this moment right now and absorb it.
And something that can happen during early labor is, especially if the woman is having really intense surges and she has this long span of time in between, she starts thinking about it a lot. And she starts thinking about how intense it is and how tricky it was. And then she starts thinking about active labor and how much more intense. And she can get into that fear, tension, pain cycle. And she can get really tense and really thrown out of enjoying this phase, this experience that Taryn is talking about. And so I just invite you to number one, try not to do all that analyzing and overthinking and just enjoy those periods in between. But also know that it's very common as your surges get stronger and they get closer together, you start to go deeper within. And for some women, it's almost easier to manage the intensity of it because you're just like always in it and you get into that flow more. It's easier to get in that flow, in my opinion, during active labor because it's like more constant than like, oh, here's a surge and then, oh, I'm gonna go cook, I'm gonna pee, I'm gonna do all this stuff. Okay, there's another surge, and you kind of get out of that flow, but you have this other beautiful experience in between, but it's just different. So I want to hopefully give you some comfort in knowing that even if during early labor you think, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do active labor, know that you might have that experience of going deeper and deeper and deeper as your labor progresses, and it might get, I don't even want to say easier, but you're able to manage it and you figure it out, and it's this different phase. It's just ever evolving, and just trusting that you will be able to evolve into that active labor.
And start to notice also if the energy is rising around you, because as you start to have surges come and they start to feel like what we all call like the real deal, like they are these real surges. Yeah. People around you are like, oh, it's happening, you know, gosh. And it becomes this whole thing. And then your partner potentially is like, oh, let's get the bag and go to the hospital. You call everybody. And it becomes this whole big thing where energy is rising, and mind comes in so much with all of that. Just like you were saying, like it comes in and it can spin out a little bit. Again, this is a really precious time. And I don't say that with like a pressure to make it something like that you have to, it's whatever it is going to be fine. But if you can pull back for a moment and just like have everyone in your environment calm down. Remember that they are there to support you in this. So it is okay to ask everybody to just calm down and let's be in this moment right now. Let me drop back into myself, go back into that grounding energy, using your breath like we talked about. Use your breath to pull yourself back in, pull your energy down, and just get grounded before you go into this next phase of labor, because that groundedness is really going to serve you. And around you, again, your environment, what do you want your inner experience to be? Well, that excitement might be very exciting. It might be like, it might cause you to feel motivated. It might be like joyful. It might be so many positive things. But is that the experience that you want to have moving into labor? Maybe it is. I have no idea what it is that you want. But just make sure that the way that your team around you is being, or the people around you, your friends, your family, start to really cultivate that environment. Start to say like, this group of people, there's too many people here. I need to have some quiet time. I need to have some solitude. I want to just be with my partner. I want to just be with my toddler, if you have a toddler, you know, like just starting to work all of those little things out so that you're in the energy you want to be in to then move into the next phase. You're preparing yourself. You're in the present moment, but you're also doing it with consciousness that you are now embarking on a journey.